Was it self-defense or cold-blooded murder? Courtney Clenny was a successful X-rated OnlyFans model. Her boyfriend, Christian Obumseli, traded crypto. And using the name Courtney Tailor, she sported over 2 million followers on Instagram. He was an engineer and an aspiring entrepreneur. She's currently sitting in a Miami jail charged with second-degree murder. He's dead. Their roller coaster relationship and luxurious lifestyles have captivated social media since April 2020. After his death, dozens of friends and former neighbors came forward revealing stories about their toxic relationship. Stories that paint her as the abuser and him as the victim. In the end, Christian died in the hospital on April 3, 2022, with a stab wound in his upper right torso. Meanwhile, Courtney stayed behind in their luxury Miami apartment, wearing nothing but a thin black bra and gray sweatpants covered head to toe in Christian's blood. She sat between their bed and the wall, her hands cuffed behind her back as police pieced the scene together. As of September 2022, Courtney has pleaded not guilty to the second-degree murder of her boyfriend. Miami courts are holding her without bail as she awaits the next steps in her murder trial. So, while we wait to learn the facts about their story in court, let's unpack everything we know about the death of Christian Obumseli. Thanks for watching True Crime Recaps. I'm Chris. Christian and Courtney are Texans, born and bred. His obituary states he was born in Dallas, while she posts on social media calling herself a Lil Texas girl. He studied communications and engineering. She ventured to LA, where she jumped into an internet career as a fitness influencer. However, life brought the Lil Texas girl back to Austin. Flush with cash from her OnlyFans page, Courtney rented the penthouse suite at the Berkshire Riverview complex in the city. Their website doesn't list how expensive the penthouse suites are, but we can assume they're pretty pricey. For comparison, a 1,200 square foot, 2-bed, 2-bath is about $2,600 a month. Not bad when you're potentially making six figures on OnlyFans. According to Rolling Stone, when Christian and Courtney began dating isn't totally clear. Two of his longtime friends told the magazine that he and Courtney started dating in early 2020 before the pandemic hit. Other friends in Austin say the relationship started on a group trip to Tulum, Mexico in the summer of 2020. 3 Riverview neighbors agreed that Christian and Courtney were living together in the penthouse suite by the fall of 2020. Based on past arrests, eyewitness accounts, and several reputable news outlets, Courtney had a problem with alcohol abuse. And we're not sure how long she struggled to control her drinking, but many neighbors in Austin and eventually Miami corroborate her public intoxication. Her first legal scrap with alcohol came in 2015 when she was charged with public intoxication in California. There was still a warrant for her arrest on that charge when she allegedly murdered Christian. On September 16, 2020, police in Austin arrested her for driving under the influence. They released her on an $8,000 bond and forced her to install a breathalyzer on her car. And we don't know if she entered a plea deal in this case, but records showed a pre-trial hearing scheduled for June 15, 2022. According to the New York Post, Courtney was due in Texas court around the time Christian was killed. Now, did she move to Miami thinking she could escape her day in court? It's not impossible. When Courtney wasn't getting DUIs, she was busy making her presence known at Berkshire Riverview. Most of the residents are wealthy 20-somethings enjoying quick access to downtown Austin. One resident told Rolling Stone how Courtney hosted loud parties in her apartment and was pretty open about her OnlyFans career. A neighbor, choosing to remain anonymous, called her extremely generous with money and mentioned how she'd always show up with a housewarming gift. But when the alcohol kicked in, it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. As for the fighting between Courtney and Christian, the same Riverview neighbor described her and Christian's relationship as extremely toxic. She saw Courtney get physical with Christian in the complex common areas on more than one occasion, though she never saw Christian fight back. She'd hit him, but not aggressively, almost how you'd punish a dog for misbehaving, with light, demeaning taps to the head. Now, this wasn't the first time our anonymous neighbor would describe Christian as an abused pet. In March 2021, the neighbor was walking to her car in the complex garage when she heard a woman screaming. She ran toward the sound, seeing Courtney and Christian engaged in a fight. He was holding the door open and trying to get her to go inside. She was swinging at him like a drunken boxer. Our anonymous resident called out and Courtney ran inside. Christian apologized for the commotion, saying, "I just wanted to make sure she got home safe. She's really, really drunk. I'm so sorry. I'm leaving right now." According to the neighbor, as Christian walked away, he was walking with his head down, tail between the legs type of thing. She also noticed marks on his face, like scratches, and his shirt was torn around the collar. A different neighbor talked about Courtney's habit of throwing things out the window. On one occasion, she threw a piece of hard-shell luggage full of Christian's things off the 11th floor balcony and into a pond. However, a friend of the couple said she apologized and bought him a new piece of Louis Vuitton luggage. The neighbor living in the apartment below Courtney and Christian said he always heard arguing and breaking glass coming from the apartment. While in his living room in the summer of 2021, a 2-by-3-foot painting fell from her balcony and onto his. And whether Courtney or Christian threw the picture, he couldn't say for sure, but he had a pretty good idea. While Courtney, it seems, was the aggressor in most cases, one neighbor claims they saw Christian hit her on one occasion. They told Local 10 News about seeing Christian, with his back to them, either open or closed fist, slap Courtney when he thought nobody was around. However, this is the only account of Christian playing a role in any physical abuse, though we can't say anything for sure about mental or emotional abuse, nor can we corroborate this neighbor's story. The couple moved from Austin to Miami in early 2022, renting another luxury apartment at the One Paraíso building, where condos run anywhere from $885,000 to $4.6 million. Rent can be anywhere from $5,400 a month to $40,000 a month. Financially speaking, they were both doing very well, though Courtney was probably the breadwinner unless Christian was making money hand over fist on crypto. But the fighting followed them to Florida, and even though they boasted a loving relationship online, neighbors at One Paraíso tell similar stories as their former Texan neighbors. According to the Daily Mail, there were so many domestic dispute complaints about their apartment that the One Paraíso staff was on the verge of evicting them. Perhaps the most damning evidence against Courtney is an elevator surveillance video captured a couple of months before Christian's death in the One Paraíso building. The video starts and we see Courtney step onto the elevator. She's barefoot, wearing a bra and pajama bottoms, and starts aggressively hitting the buttons on the touchscreen control panel. However, she keeps her hand on the door as if trying to keep it open. Apparently, the doors aren't closing fast enough, probably because her hand is in the way, and she starts slapping the control panel. Then, Christian steps on, and Courtney takes out her aggression on him. She slaps him in the arm, and he recoils. She keeps pushing and shoving him, trying to get him out of the elevator before pulling at his hair. He holds his arms up to defend himself as she punches and slaps at his chest and head. He tries to restrain her, even using his body to back her into the corner, but she breaks free and continues the attack. The doors finally open and Christian walks out, Courtney hot on his trail. To be fair, the elevator video doesn't depict the events leading up to the fight. Courtney's lawyer, Frank Prieto, had a major problem with releasing this video, calling it a desperate attempt by the state attorney's office to win this case in the court of public opinion. He told Newsweek, Obumseli was the abuser, the worst kind of abuser. As the story goes, Courtney and Christian broke up after the elevator incident, but got back together either at the end of March or on April 1st, 2 days before his death. April 3rd began like a typical day. The couple eventually got into a fight, and Christian left around 1 p.m. His key fob data from the building shows he left at approximately 1:15 p.m. While he was away, Courtney went live on Instagram. The Miami-Dade police timeline is as follows. At 4:01, Courtney calls Christian and then goes back on Instagram. At 4:32, Christian's key fob data shows him entering the building with Subway sandwiches. A minute later, she calls him and he walks into the apartment. 10 minutes later, Courtney calls her mom and they speak until 4:49. At 4:49, Courtney calls her mom back and they speak for another 7 minutes. At 4:57, Courtney calls 911 saying she's stabbed her boyfriend. Police arrive at 5:04 and an ambulance takes Christian to the hospital where he dies from blood loss. Other neighbors called security to report a domestic disturbance between the time Christian came home and when she stabbed him. She also received a somewhat questionable text from a family member at 5:25 mentioning self-defense and telling Courtney not to speak with the police without a lawyer. Now here's where Courtney's self-defense story comes into play. She claims Christian attacked her and put his hands around her throat trying to kill her. She escaped his grasp, fell backward, and grabbed a kitchen knife. She then threw the kitchen knife at Christian from the floor, about 10 feet away, striking him in the upper right torso, the wound that ultimately killed him. The medical examiner tells a different story. The wound that killed Christian could only be inflicted from a close distance. The 6-inch blade was embedded more than 3 inches into his chest and went through an artery. On the scene, police found a bloody apartment and a hysterical Courtney covered in blood. And they put Courtney in handcuffs and eventually brought her down to the station. While in custody, she allegedly threatened to kill herself. Her threats forced police to consider Florida's Baker's Act, allowing them to commit her to a mental health treatment facility for 72 hours. Miami police eventually let Courtney go after she gave a recorded statement of the events surrounding Christian's death. She stuck to her self-defense story, a story her lawyer, Frank, still champions as of September 2022. Some raised questions about her behavior in the days after Christian's death. Not even 24 hours later, she posted a new X-rated video to her OnlyFans page, though it's unclear if this was a pre-recorded video just scheduled to release on April 4th. On April 8th, a group of women recorded Courtney and her father at a hotel bar in Miami. They confronted her about Christian's death, and you can hear Courtney barking back, "He tried to kill me." From there, Courtney checked herself into a rehabilitation center in Hawaii where she received substance abuse treatment while Christian's family mourned his death. His family was utterly shocked that she wasn't arrested, believing she was getting special treatment. Then, on August 8th, 2022, the family got their wish. Authorities arrested Courtney in Hawaii and extradited her to Florida to stand trial for Christian's murder. They seized her phone and its contents, including lewd photos, videos, and text messages. Her lawyer filed a motion to keep the contents of her phone out of the public eye. He argued that none of it, especially the sexually explicit pornography, as he called it, has anything to do with this case. But in the interest of transparency, the judge denied the motion. Armed with a not guilty plea, Courtney Clenny is slated to face a Miami-Dade County jury before the end of 2022. And meanwhile, Christian's body was flown back and buried in his home state of Texas, back to the place where he and Courtney met and the final countdown began. No one can truly know what goes on between a couple behind closed doors. But what's your gut feeling on this one? Is Courtney Clenny the victim or the villain?